Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear in about 2 minutes the absolute hubris, the unbelievable indignation, the inability to understand or accept reality. Now, if President Trump said the sky is blue and that you need to breathe air and eat food and drink water, the morally superior liberal Democrats, who are wonderful people, would say, no, that's not true. Fact check. You can live, this amount of time without food and water. Fact check. The sky isn't always blue. They will be in disbelief at all times, even if Trump tells them the truth, the reality. And what took place, ladies and gentlemen, is that today, watch my segment prior to this one, the reporting of the New York Post has been vindicated. The New York Post should never have been suspended. There should never have been algorithms that prevented discussion of Hunter's laptop. Those emails are going to be used to impeach President Mashed Potato Brains. But you're going to hear Leslie Stahl at 60 Minutes, and you're going to hear President Trump. And I want you to, you'll hear it, just because I want to make sure this is YouTube guideline friendly. You'll just hear it, and you'll hear the interaction where Trump is sincere, telling the truth, the absolute truth. The Durham probe had already been started at this point, okay? I believe the Durham probe had already been started, but there was already Intercept articles and other articles, even Washington Post articles on Stephen Halper, one of the people who was engaged in surveillance of Trump's campaign, but a lot of other examples where information was purchased against Trump, like the Steele dossier. And he says, look, I've been under surveillance. They've lied about me. And the response was, no. No. And the response also was, this is CBS. This is 60 Minutes. We can't talk about anything we can't verify. Well, They all talked about the Steele dossier that was unverified. CBS News, 60 Minutes, talked about the Steele dossier. It was completely unverified. In fact, when BuzzFeed published it, they said it was unverified. But they wanted the world to decide. That Trump doesn't have the luxury of that. Everything about Trump the past 5 years pertaining to the allegations that he was installed by another country has been false, has been misleading, has been the epitome of what Democrats claim to be or claim to uphold. When the Washington Post says democracy perishes in darkness, they're actually referencing the darkness that they've helped create and that 60 Minutes and others have helped create. Trump was never installed by another country, and anyone who perpetuated that, by the way, James Clapper and other intel officials signed a letter. Numerous other ones, a great many, signed a letter saying, oh yes, this is disinformation from another country. But hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen, that Hunter's laptop was disinformation from another country. But listen to this. You will not believe your ears. Listen to this.
So the biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign.
There's no real evidence of that.
Of course there is.
Notice there's no real evidence. There's never enough evidence to make the claim that Trump was a victim. Notice that. There's no real evidence. There's evidence. You can have circumstantial evidence against Trump or Giuliani or anyone associated with Trump. Circumstantial. Isn't it interesting how Trump, notice they haven't indicted him for anything. There is no evidence that he committed a crime. There's no direct evidence Trump ever committed a crime. They don't have him on his tax returns. They don't have him on inflating the value of his real estate. They never had him on campaign finance violations. The Mueller probe had nothing on Trump. Never indicted anybody for working alongside intelligence officials of the Kremlin. He never had anything to do directly with the fateful day, horrible day in January. He didn't tell people to commit crimes. He used the word peaceful. The Attorney General of D.C. and the Mayor of D.C. never leveled any charges against Trump, but guess what? That didn't stop a panel, a congressional panel. So notice that there's no real evidence of that. Translation, there's no evidence we'll accept. The mainstream can promulgate stories and perpetuate myths, and when they retract their false reporting, when their suspicion is proven to be false, and it could be suspicion about the 5 different investigations of Trump, or suspicion that another country installed him, that suspicion, the fear, the anxiety, or the suspicion, or the emotions that they helped foment. Propaganda is about emotion. The emotions they help foment for one political side and against another political side, the emotions that they create still resonate and still exist within tens of millions of people. Bolsters their bias against Trump. The emotions that they help foster and create and perpetuate, those emotions of suspicion, anxiety, distrust against the Orange Menace, those still exist, even though their reporting is false. Now, when you have an actual laptop with emails that will eventually impeach mashed potato brains, President exhumed body, and literally the emails say, how can you use your influence on behalf of the company? Or when President exhumed body says, oh yeah, and they told me I had no authority. I said, call President Obama. He forces out a prosecutor. They're unable to look at reality. And that's why I have to speak in charades and trying to give you symbols or, an explanation, speaking in roundabout terms or more long-winded than usual. But listen to this.
All over the place. Leslie, they spied on my campaign and they can call.
Can I say something? This is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't verify.
Put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't do things we can't verify.
Leslie.
You didn't verify the Steele dossier, or James Clapper's ODNI report, or Brennan's nonsense, or Comey's nonsense, or Mueller's nonsense against Trump. And CBS News published and 60 Minutes, and all of them, ABC, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, only published and only ran stories they couldn't verify. The exception was not sometimes they ran stories they couldn't verify. They only ran stories about Trump based on anonymous sources, based on hearsay, gossip, intel community nonsense. But you'd have to have a grasp of how media works. When there's a source without any verification, that source can be used against the Trump Republican. It cannot be used. There cannot be an unnamed source against mashed potato brains Biden. It will not happen. It can't happen because media is an extension of the Democratic Party. There are 2 standards of justice, but also definitely 2 standards of journalism. Comey will say, Madam Secretary didn't mean to have top secret intelligence on private servers. That top secret intelligence somehow found its way onto private servers, but CBS News and 60 Minutes, they're not going to ask how, and Comey's certainly not going to tell you how Sullivan or anyone else transferred or migrated top secret and special access intel onto servers. We don't know. But we do know that a dossier was purchased on Trump. Says he was in a Moscow hotel room. And Trump's capable of anything.
They spied on my campaign.
We can't verify
It's been totally
that.
verified.
No.
It's been, just go down.
We can't verify that. Like I said, 60 Minutes has done endless work the past 5 years on Trump being installed possibly by the Kremlin. The allegation, for them to insinuate or infer that Trump did something wrong was enough for 60 Minutes to run stories against Trump. They didn't verify every story against Trump because they couldn't have. But the hubris, the arrogance, the narcissism, the inability, the willingness to look at Trump like he's this Martian, like he's lost his mind, like he is, it's impossible. And this is why you have liberal family members and friends who believe falsehoods, who've given their hearts and souls to myths and fantasies. And they look at you and they disown you when they either lack the intellect or the understanding of how media works or politics works in this country. And they're unable to see what's really going on, what's really happening. They're the ones being deceived and duped. Trump was never an authoritarian. He was the antithesis of an authoritarian. Tyrants utilize their media, and tyrants utilize their intelligence communities to go after political opponents. That's what Democrats literally did against him. So the people claiming Trump was a tyrant, they were the actual tyrants.
Down and get the papers. They spied on my campaign. They got caught.
No.
And then they went much further than that, and they got caught. And you will see that, Leslie, and you know that, but you just don't want to put it
No.
on the air.
As a matter of fact, I don't know.
The Durham probe special counsel was already there, I believe already in existence when this took place. But we're seeing now the Durham probe, 3 indictments, one for lying to a FISA judge, one for lying about the Steele dossier, and one for lying to the FBI about who paid for all of this to take place. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Trump, along with gas prices, along with everything he said about the economy and foreign policy, was vindicated. It's almost as if the man is this orange Nostradamus. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now, people. I'll be back in literally 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. Thank you.